Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have a wonderful guest. We have Oliver Fernandez from Washington, D.C. What's going on, Oliver?
I'm doing great, Aaron. How are you, brother?
It's been a beautiful day here, wrapping up the week, and it's great to sit down with you and chat.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We got actually this super excited about the weekend. It's actually my wife's me and my wife's, anniversary, 5 years. So we got some we got some celebrating to do this weekend.
Okay, I'm assuming a nice dinner's in the near future, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Some
and
quiet time.
yeah, and we're leading into Memorial Day weekend, so that's nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. I know that we originally connected in Houston at the Multifamily Conference, and I enjoyed our conversation, and happy to talk some real estate and construction with you.
Yeah, no, I was super excited to meet you down there. Honestly, those are my partners that host that conference. So anytime I can get an opportunity to support them and then obviously meet great people, it's inspiring, hearing your story and what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish. It's always great to see that there's people out there that are doing something. So it's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There were a lot of really interesting people there who really came in from all over the country. Oliver, for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So I'm a kid that grew up. I was born in Boston. I was raised in Maine. I'm a little crazy, but uh, so and I grew up with my mom and my three sisters, while my dad, stayed back in Boston. My dad owned a construction company growing up. It's crazy because like before I was 18, he had made millions and lost millions twice. So like I was telling you, it was very anxiety producing as a kid, because at that point I didn't know how to create wealth and I didn't know how to create security for my family. So you can only imagine how that was. So like from from high school, right? That was like senior year. That was like where I had my next big decision, like what was I going to do with the rest of my life, my dad was a guy that um, he started a business, had made millions of dollars, had lost millions of dollars, never went to college or anything, kind of was like self-made from like the projects. And then my mom was an Ivy League graduate. So she was like school, school, school. My dad was like school, school, school. So I was like, all right. I went off to Syracuse and studied some civil engineering there. Um, I also worked my way onto the football team there. And it taught me so many great lessons, just hard work, determination, like just continuing to push forward, not giving up, and that it's okay not to be the best right here, right now, but like just continue to put the work in. And it was very an inspiring time. So like the cool thing with going up there was by the time of my senior year, I had started to over the summers I stayed off campus, and one of the places we stayed at off campus was this was another classmate of mine. He was a senior just like I was, but his dad had bought him this house, right, and he was just renting out some of the rooms. So I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So you're making money, you're going to school, and you got some real estate. I was like, this is pretty sweet. Um, so I started like kind of telling some family members about it, and my great aunt, she'd always kind of been um, like an investor type of person. She didn't have any kids. She was always he was always investing in like stocks for like dividends and stuff. And then she had like some real estate properties. So I mean, she was when I say great aunt, she was like 75, 80 years old. Like she was, she had some experience with her, but at the same time was still a little didn't wasn't really an investor. Like she knew how to make money. Like she knew that like if I paid 100 for this and it's not worth 200, like I made 100 grand. But she didn't really like understand like the nitty gritty of like how to get that value created. But um when I graduated from Syracuse, right, um right before graduation, I started looking at some properties there. Wasn't able to put anything together, and then I went down to Atlanta, and that's when I bought my first property, and I made a big mistake there, man. But that's kind of my intro. But yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was a nice little cliffhanger there. What was, if you don't mind, what was the mistake in Atlanta?
Yeah. So when I bought that property in Atlanta, right? My first property I'd ever bought, and I just was like, I wanted something that was like clean, you know what I mean? That I could, I could rent out a room or two, kind of like how, I saw that guy doing in Syracuse, right? It's like, you got to have the model, right? And then that was the model that I knew in my head, right? So I was like, all right. I got this 2 bedroom, 2.5 bathroom like place, and I was able to rent out one of the rooms while I lived in another room, and I could like save my money while the other kid was like basically paying the mortgage, right? And the problem that I made though was like when I bought that property was '08. So you know what happened after that? Like the property values went, everybody's property came on the market and nobody was buying, so everybody's property values went, nosediving. So with that nosedive came my property went nosediving as well. So I realized that like you can't buy a property that's fully renovated and think that, and then pay top dollar for it and think that like it's just going to continue to go up, right? So I learned that like you got to add value to these properties to really have security and stability in real estate, right? And then you can add value in two ways. Like you can add value through operations, like running the property better, right? Especially for some of these bigger properties, there's some real value creation that you can create by running them better. And then number two is like through construction, and that's where I come in. It's like let's buy this and let's renovate this and let's renovate that and let's add some value and get that money dropping down to the NOI, and the multiplier on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a neat perspective to hear, just kind of hearing, I mean, even the way you described your parents, the Ivy League education versus, the self-made millionaire who's won, who's lost, had a few battle scars, and it seems like you've kind of been formed and you have a very unique perspective.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And honestly, like my dad used to always say, like, take the good things, leave the bad things. Take the good things and leave the bad things. And I mean, he, as crazy as the guy was, I mean, it is, to this day, I love him. I mean, I care a lot about him. I want him to do well. And I know he wants me to do well. And at the same time, I've learned a lot from him. And like the desire to will to keep going, not giving up. You know what I mean? Like when you get beat up like that, like I've seen people, like I live in DC, like even those people, you see people all the time that have given up. So he kept going and he's still going to this day. He's still got a construction company. So he's moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear, Oliver. And I'm curious as well, just how to interpret that. Your dad said, keep the good things, leave the bad things. What exactly does that mean?
So like the good things is like starting a business, right? Like do that, but like don't go bankrupt, or like, or make better decisions with money, you know what I mean? Or like things like that, you know what I mean? Like he didn't, he barely, I think he barely graduated high school. So like he wasn't like a numbers guy. He also put a lot of trust into other people, right? And I think that there's such a fine line with that, right? Like I know that like growth and control are like inversely related. So like if you want to grow, you do have to give up some control, right? So like I totally agree with putting trust in other people, but at the same time, you have to create like a system and a foundation for the people to operate in, right?
Mm.
So like my dad would just like say, hey, we want to do this, right? And like he'd put up the money for it, but like there was no structure or foundation in place. So like things would go off the rails, and then who was left holding the bag? My dad was. So it's it's putting trust in people, but putting structure.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it's kind of a, like you said, that fine line, or kind of a dance between, really pushing the envelope versus, hey, we're taking calculated risks, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I believe in you have like to reward, you're going to have to take risk, right? Like I didn't, I've never gained anything or separated myself from anyone or like, just anything, right? Without taking risk. And that's like why you do separate, because there's people out there that won't take that risk. So when you do take that risk, that's where you get those disproportionate gains, right?
Yeah, completely. And, it sounds like, winning and losing the way, your dad has in this business, it gives you that unique perspective, that experience you had in Atlanta as well. I'm curious, what happened after Atlanta? Did you come back to the East Coast, or what exactly happened after that?
Yeah, so with the property in Atlanta, like that's the cool thing about real estate is like, yeah, the property value at the time lost, right? But like, did I technically lose? No. Like on paper, maybe, but I didn't actually lose money because I didn't sell the deal yet, right? So like, yeah, I took a hit on the price or whatever, but like I understood the rental game. It's like you better keep that place occupied, and they'll keep paying, like the tenants will keep paying the mortgage, right? And then like, and then hopefully like there's a brighter day one day, right? And then like that day came, it just took 10 years to come, right? And we sold it for more than we bought it for, and we had all the principal pay down and all that stuff that happened. So it ended up working out, and that's why I love real estate, is because when things bad do happen, it's not like the stock market where you're like, oh man, dude, like it's like a big drop in your whole everything's going down, right? Like here's a situation where things are down, but you're still receiving income, so it continues to move forward, right? And then it comes a time when you do sell, and then hopefully when you are in position to sell, you can profit. And for that deal in Atlanta, I did profit, right? And it was a really good experience, because it was like, again, it was like in it for the long haul, committed to the process, persistent, had to work through getting a couple tenants in there and out of there, right? And I wasn't making big money on the thing, so it was all heart, it was all will, it was all desire, it was all grind, like all the things that you need to be successful. And then you take that, and then you start putting it on some of these bigger 100-unit properties, just like the next property that I bought in Atlanta, which was 152 units, right? You can become victorious, right? You can really create a tremendous amount of value for not only yourself but your investors.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting as well. I know you mentioned earlier about, basically adding value, I guess, one of two ways. Number one, through operations, running it properly. And number two, construction. I would imagine, with 152 units, how do you know, hey, this project, and I need to do operations more or construction or both, or how do you analyze that?
Yeah, that's really good. So like this property was kind of easy because there was like 30 down units. So you knew like this was a pure construction play. Like we get those 30 units online, right? The property already has a property manager, already landscaping's already taken care of. Um, the property already has, a maintenance staff, all that stuff, right? So like all of a sudden you now put 30 units now operating and people are renting there, and then all of that rental income is coming to the property. That's going basically straight to the bottom line. So 30 units at $1,000 a unit, right? And that's 30,000 a month, and over 12 months, right? That's like 360 grand, right? It's dropping right to the bottom line in value for investors and value for the owners, right? So that was the goal. Like right when we bought that property, had 30 down units. There were some foundation issues, some water infiltration issues. There was, and then there was actually some units that weren't even that bad. They just needed some money and some TLC. So we worked on those first, obviously, and then we started on we worked through the hard ones, right?
Completely. And I'm curious as well, Oliver, what's kind of your timeline here? I know you said you had the 30 down units, obviously the project 100, 50 plus units is much bigger. What's your timeline to get all of this done?
Yeah. So we had a CapEx budget. I think it was just over $1 million on that job. And me and my like partner that was like, um, you know, we kind of like we like see things like very like the same way. And he's like, dude, like we can get in and out of here in a year. And I'm like, yeah, let's set that as the goal, right? So we were on track to complete that entire capex construction budget in 1 year. Um, we you know, and like when going back to those foundation issues and that with those water issues, right? That was the only reason we actually even got this property, because the property was under contract 2 other times with other groups, but they backed off of the deal because like they got in and did due diligence and they were scared. They saw water, they saw mold, they saw like all these things, and they were like, dude, I don't want to deal with this, or I don't know how to deal with it, right? But you know, when I'm talking about sometimes working on those smaller projects and putting that work and that time in, right? Like I have a duplex down the street here where I'm at in DC, and on that property, the first day the tenant moved into the basement unit, we get a call. My wife and I get a call like, "Hey, there's water in the basement." So like here we're like freaking out, like, "Oh man, there's water in the basement." We ended up having to like tear out a whole front bedroom and like put all this waterproofing stuff in and do all this crazy stuff, right? And that same lesson that I learned there, I was able to extract that and go apply that to 152 units. And like those other groups backed out because of it, right? They were scared. Like we weren't, because I knew how to solve it, right?
Yeah.
And we went in there and we solved it. And you know, we you know, obviously like the property transformed, you know, basically overnight. So
Man, you know, it's so crazy you're explaining this story. Have you read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
yeah, I have. Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah,
Really
no,
good.
it reminds me of the 10,000 hour rule, and he talks about, you know, the Beatles starting out. They started playing the little, you know, dive bars in Liverpool, and they put in that work. So by the time they got to the big stage, you know, they already had the stage presence. They knew how to, you know, hit the vocals. They knew how to hit the right notes, and it kind of sounds similar.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, they always say you don't play to you don't play to your like your instincts. You play to your level of practice, right? So like if you're practicing at a 9 out of 10, like when things hit the fan, like you're going to be at a 9 out of a 10 when you need to act and perform, right? But if you're just like, yeah, you're just a 2 out of a 10 every single day, and like you're not putting any work in, like when things happen, you're going to perform at a 2 out of 10. Like, and don't expect to perform better than that. I mean, and if you get lucky, you might perform at a 3, but like, is that like being below average is never a good thing, right?
Yeah, completely. And I mean, you know, just like you said, you know, that really separated you from, you know, maybe the other people who were trying to contend for this deal. It separated you, and, you know, you got it done.
Yeah. Yes, sir. 100%. Um, yeah, no, 100%. You know, because I'm telling you, like, dude, like we weren't the only offer on that deal. Like there was 2 other offers that were signed and they backed out.
Yeah.
They didn't want to move forward with it. And then there was other groups that we talked to that were like, dude, we're not touching that. Like these are all people that are in my mastermind groups and my peer group, right? Like they're like, dude, I saw that deal. I'm not touching that. That's too much of a headache, this and that. But it wasn't a headache. We were in and out in a year, less than a year. And then COVID happened. And then like that kind of just like everything just like drug sideways. Like we ended up selling the property for like 13.6 million. And literally that price we had at like last year of February 2020. And then literally just went sideways with it
Yeah.
until so now that number is 2021 at the back of it. You know, we just
Ouch.
sold it like a month ago.
Huh. Ouch. Well, congrats on the sale. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious as well, you know, what was I guess in terms of construction, in terms of, you know, getting things done on time, your schedules, your timeline, you know, what happened in 2020, and how were you able to adjust to that?
Yeah, 2020 was crazy, you know. For this project, luckily we had finished a lot of our interior renovation stuff. There was some exterior stuff that we could still do, and we did do, because like we weren't in people's units, we weren't, everybody was scared, man. I was scared, man. Like I had just had a newborn baby, literally 2 weeks before they shut everything down, um, and no one knew like the effects of anything, so like I think we weren't able to go into units, like even to do like repairs. Like it was just everything was just hampered from that standpoint, um a lot of my other, like some of my construction projects that I do for the feds, right? I also do like work at the Navy installations and the Army installations and the GSA buildings in the USA, right? A lot of those projects is fired up. Like they wanted us there. The buildings were basically unoccupied, and they're like, "Hey, we need this, and we need this done now." So it was like real estate from a construction standpoint kind of was like, "Hey, hold on, like you can't come into my house," but like the other side was like ripping and roaring,
Wow, that's such a funny dichotomy because at least here in Texas, I don't know so much about DC, but we're in the housing shortage, so people are really wanting to pump out more houses. Whereas it's interesting you're talking about government work because it almost kind of seems like a lot of maybe the buildings were built after World War II, maybe they're just a bit run down.
Yeah, it's like a lot. 95% of the work that I do is like, and it might even mean like 99%. It's like all renovation work. So like, we'll get like a 20,000 square foot building that we got to go in and tear out the ceilings, put all new electrical wiring throughout the building. We'll tear out all the walls, electrical, plumbing, mechanical. And then the mechanical is the big driver behind it all, and like that's where we kind of like specialize in, with all the duct work and the chillers and the big air handling units. Then once all that's in, you come back and you put all the drywall in, put the ceilings in, drop ceilings, and do the paint the walls, do the floors, and then you're out. But that's kind of like, those are like the projects that we go after, heavily renovation type projects, but heavily mechanically driven.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm curious. We talked about it. You growing up on the East Coast. You doing that deal in Atlanta, the 152 unit project, and then government work as well. It sounds like your hands are in a few different pots here.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, like so this is actually probably this is a nice little story too. Like, when I was, so I told you, like I bought that real estate deal in Atlanta. Then after that, I ended up doing another real estate deal in Maine. It was like a house that my mom had owned, and my mom had gotten sick. And it was a house that was just like a shell, right? So it was basically a piece of land that had a shell on it. And my mom had gotten sick, and she ended up passing away. And like me and my sisters were like left with this property that like wasn't producing any income. It was a pure expense. And like, yeah, we could have probably just sold it, but like we would have lost like my mom's like initial equity into the deal, So what we did was we ended up like renovating that property and renting it out. And after that, I then came down to DC and started doing another property. So I was doing I was like doing like smaller like renovation projects, right? And then like I was telling you before, like my dad was, he was like always in construction, in the construction business, right? And his second bankruptcy was when I was like when I was 18. So like he then like started a couple other businesses with some other people, and like those didn't end up going anywhere. And like I think my senior year in college, he asked me like if he could use my name to put a business in. And I wanted him to still be able to provide for my sisters and everything. So I said, all right, let's go ahead and do it. And then so like while I was doing those other properties, he would ask, like, hey, can I have some money for payroll and this and that. And I had some credit cards and stuff, so I was like, I was kind of playing the game, you know what I mean? Like I'd pay for materials, he'd get paid back for the materials. Instead of paying me back for the materials, he'd use it for payroll. And long story short, once I finished this project here in DC, like we were in the hole a significant amount, like multiple six figures. And for me to get that money back, I had to go focus on construction, the construction business, not real estate, but the business of construction with 100% of my energy. And looking back, I'm so thankful for that because like I kind of had it a little bit backwards. Like I was trying to do real estate first, right? And doing real estate first can work if you make it a business and you do like, you know, refinances and all that stuff so you can get the capital back. But it doesn't work when you're trying to live off like, you know, the cash flow, especially in some of these smaller deals where it's like maybe like a couple $100 or $1,000, you know, it doesn't, the numbers don't really work. So, so like the focusing on construction, like 100% gave me the ability to develop the skill to be able to pay back multiple six figures, right? It gave me the skill to be able to earn multiple six figures, right? Like from like we've completed over $60 million in construction projects. So like be able to go out there and do that, right? And then now I can take the money that I do earn from that and put it back into real estate. So like my real estate career has actually sped up because of me focusing on the business side and letting the business funnel into real estate.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because it almost sounds a bit counterintuitive too. You mentioned, you know, having real estate first versus, you know, construction.
Yeah, real estate. Yeah, I don't. And the reason why I did that is because I always, you know, I liked real estate, but at the same time, I had it a little backwards. You know, like it was backwards because, you know, like at the same time, you need money to buy real estate, and like some of the stuff that I've learned now with like raising money, all that stuff, like I realize it doesn't always need to be your money, right?
Yeah.
But like you still need money, and like I don't know, me personally, I always like to invest alongside my investors too. So like I love being able to tell an investor on the phone, like, hey, I'm looking for, you know, $500,000 to invest in this deal, and I'm going to be investing $500,000, right? So like their confidence is in the deal because they know where my heart is and they know where my money is, right, in that deal. So they're much more willing to move forward, right? Whereas some of these guys are raising money and they have no money in the game. There's no skin in the game. There's nothing. So it's like if you have the opportunity, let me ask you, if you have the opportunity to invest with someone with skin in the game and money, real money in the game, in the deal versus not having money in the deal, what would you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. No, and that really speaks volumes, right? Because it's easy to, you know, to front and talk a big game, but when you also put skin in the game along with your investor, you know, that's a lot of confidence, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And the raising money game is all confidence. Like if you can't exert, or not even exert, if you can't demonstrate confidence to your investor, there's no way that they're going to invest with you. Like there's literally no way. I mean, but like if you can display or confidence, like they're in, right? Especially if they're a person that thinks about return and capital preservation and tax benefits and all of the things that people want to invest in real estate for, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, you know, you touched on a few interesting things there. You talked about not using your own money, using other people's money. You talked about maybe, you know, you use the words, you know, investors, your investors, you know, working with you. You know, how exactly is this working? Are you putting the deals together, or are you doing the rehab and then the investor comes in? Or could you kind of explain the scenario for us?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So when I first started out, it was like I used to do like a lot of like you know, of my own projects. So I was the only owner, so I owned 100% of the deal. Then I started having, you know, maybe two of us in the deal. So those were like more of the joint venture structures, right? But there's still a cap to that because, like, you know, I couldn't do a $20 million deal on my own. You know, I could do maybe a, you know, $2 million deal, but it wasn't a $20 million deal. So then as I wanted to grow and expand, I knew I had to like, there had to be some sort of a shift. And then that's when I got introduced to the syndication model, right? And then, you know, with the syndication model, you know, now we have our investors, right? And that they can be anywhere between, 75% of the deal. And then we have the operators who are 25 to 30% of the deal, right? And the operators are running all of the day-to-day operations. And then the investors, right? They're just bringing capital to the table. And then, honestly, when you start to do the bigger deals, right, they allow for you to have opportunity to like bring other people in, right? Because like when I was doing these smaller deals, like I had family members that were seeing the results that I was getting. I had friends that were seeing the results that I was getting. I had all kinds of people seeing the results that I was getting, but there was no real way for me to get them involved unless because the deals were too small. So I would have had to take like a big haircut or hold back some of my return to let somebody in. And it just was like, the deals were too small. But you make the deals big enough, then everybody can win together. And it's just like, they're happy, I'm happy, and like, we're all happy, and it's great.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, obviously, you talked about starting out with smaller properties and scaling up, but it's interesting how, maybe people like to stick to smaller unit counts, but what you're suggesting is, hey, keeping a bigger deal and there's more opportunity for everyone involved.
Yeah, 100%. There's more opportunity for everybody involved. There's more stability, right? Because like when I was buying those singles or even a duplex, right? You lose one tenant, you're 100% vacant in a single family, right? Yeah. You lose one tenant in a duplex, you're 50% vacant, right? You lose 10 tenants in a 100-unit building, you're still 90% occupied, yeah. Right? So like there's also the stability of the bigger properties, right? And you don't really, when you're starting out, like I agree, like you're not always thinking of all of those things, but like when you start taking investors' money, like you want the deals to be stable. Like you don't want something that's very volatile, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your name, your reputation, everything's on the line, and that my reputation is worth more to me than anything, So I'm always looking to do things that are stable, right? That have a baseline, but then I can grow and create a return based off of like my construction skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, that's great that you're able to offer those things, that construction expertise, as well as, knowing the investing game as well.
Yeah. And it's been a process, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't always understand the numbers, always understand how construction worked, like there's been so many, lessons that have been learned. I remember my first construction project, right? I was installing this box culvert up in is Massachusetts. I can't remember. I think it was Waltham, but I can't remember exactly. And it was a box culvert is like this big box that basically pipe that water can run through, right? So it was on a golf course. So it allowed the people to drive over the golf court, over the water stream, right? It was like a bridge almost. It allowed people to drive over it, but then water is still to go under it. So we did that job, right? And then when I looked at the job, right, it was a beautiful day out. There was no water coming down that stream. And then when we started the job, man, we had a big rainstorm. And I guess there was a big hill behind some of the trees back there. And like all of the water would come flowing down that thing. And it was like 4 feet of water that was nonstop. Like when I wanted to go home at the end of the night, right, to go take a nap or go to sleep, right, that water was still coming. Like water was 24/7, on the weekends, the water was there, So we set up this pump system. And then, once we got huge rain, that pump system wasn't able to handle all that water that came through, and it kind of washed out our little job site. So that job, I ended up losing like 35 grand on that job. It was my first job. I think the whole job was valued at 35 grand. And it was 2 phases, right? So I spent 35 grand on the first phase of it. And then like I said, my reputation means everything. So even though I knew I was already at my cost, I went and did that second phase, right? And I thought there was going to be like 1 or 2 change orders that we were going to be able to get because like there was some changes of conditions. And we ended up not getting those change orders. And we ended up taking a hit for 35 grand. But I'll tell you what, losing that 35 grand on that job set me up to be able to go and execute on $60 million worth of work. Because the family that I worked for on that job, they were a general contractor, but they ran things so tight. The way they negotiated with me, I still use those strategies even today when I'm on these $60 million worth of projects, right? Like the same way they laid out the job and saw things and handled themselves, I still use those experiences. Like you can't replace that. Like that experience, no one can ever take that away from me. You know what I mean? And no one can ever see it from my point of view because like they weren't there. Like they weren't the one that lost the 35 grand. And this was before I'd ever even made real money. You know what I mean? This was all like credit card money. I was like trying to get things off the ground, you know? So like things were like that stress created a diamond, man. It created a diamond to be able to understand the construction game. And then like to understand the construction game, but like even though I understand it, I still need to continue to expand my thing. You know what I mean? Because like I'm talking 60 million now, but like my goal now is like 600 million. You know, like I need to not even like that's behind me. That 60 million's in the past. Like the real goal is like 600 million. How do we get there? Like those are the things I'm working on now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Oliver. And it can be tough for some people too, because maybe you're in a rut, you're having a hard time, maybe you're deep in debt with the credit cards, maybe you were relying on those change orders, they didn't happen. But for you, it's almost like you mentioned, forging a diamond, through that hardship, you have this perspective and you're in a good position now.
Yeah. It's all pushing forward. And I mean, you listen to anybody that's ever created something, it's never been like this perfect situation, right? It's always been a struggle. And then the ones who continue to push through that struggle are the ones who always become victorious, right? Even if you look at the stock market, right? Like it doesn't just go straight up. Like even every single day, it's like this little thing that goes like this. There's ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. And I don't even like looking at the stock market, right? But it's true. Like there's always these ups and downs, right? And you just got to continue to handle the ups and downs, and then just keep moving forward, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. No, you mentioned a number, you said 600 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, we know you're looking for that 600 million. You're really looking to really up your game and do larger deals. What exactly are you looking for right now? How, maybe if someone's listening, how can they take part in what you're doing?
Yeah. So we're looking for deals that are $20 million deals, multifamily, 100 plus units, that need like a lot of value added to them, right? Like I know a lot of people have already eaten a lot of the meat off the bone on some of these deals, but there's still some out there. I mean, we found them. I mean, even last week I was down in Atlanta. It was 2 weeks ago actually. And we were looking at a 330 unit deal with 300 units, like basically to the studs. So they're out there, even though, a lot of them have been renovated, they're still out there. And like, those are the deals that I want to be involved in. I want deals that are heavy, that need heavy construction, that are complicated, that are hard, because we can always get them done. And we have the team to get them done.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And it's funny because it also reminds me of earlier in the show, you talked about, you really separating yourself from, the other competitors being afraid of that, that water damage, whereas, you continued on.
Yeah. That's wherever there's, like I was saying before too, even wherever there's risk, wherever there's like uncertainty, and that's what construction's about. It's like the wild, wild west. Like someone who's very certain, they don't want to be in construction, especially in the field and dealing with all the uncertainty that every day brings about. Like that'll eat them up and spit them out in like 2 seconds, right? But yeah, wherever there's risk, wherever there's that uncertainty, a lot of people are not going to go toward that, right? But that's also where I see there to be a lot of opportunity, right? And wherever there's opportunity, that's where I want to be, and that's where my team wants to be.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, Oliver. Well, is there anything you haven't said thus far that you'd really just like to hammer home?
Yeah, I just want to just encourage everybody that, whether you're a single family person, a duplex, you got hundreds of units, just keep going and make the dream big enough, right? Like continue to enlarge that dream. And then when you enlarge that dream, other people can fit in there, right? The other opportunities fit in there. And it's just like once those all opportunities start to come together, it's just like it's so rewarding. It's rewarding because you're not alone, right? You're not alone doing the day to day. You have a team and you win together, right? Like you get compliments, you get results together instead of like, oh yeah, I got that result, but who do I high five? I don't high five anybody, right? So just keep going and continue to expand the vision and get around good people. Every time I've changed my life in a big way, it's always because I've put myself around someone who is already doing something way bigger than I was doing, and they helped show me the way. Um, and at the same time, they helped show me the way because I got their attention and I was willing to put money in their pocket, right? Like give them a piece of my deals, right? Give them something. And the reason why I was so willing to do that is because I knew that my thinking right here, right now, wasn't going to get me to my goal. And if it was going to get me to my goal, I would have already been at my goal, right? So like I was willing to give them a piece of the pie because I knew I needed their thought process, their strategy. And then if I started putting money in their pocket, then they would be like willing to share that strategy and actually help implement that strategy, right?
Yeah.
So just keep going, keep pushing forward, and continue to make the life of your dreams.
Yes, sir. There's definitely a lot to be said for that, Oliver. Well, maybe someone's been listening. They're familiar with the Atlanta market, DC, maybe somewhere the East Coast, or they just want to get in touch with you on how to do some deals. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can reach me on my at my email. It's ODF3, which is Oliver Dan Fernandez 3, all abbreviated ODF3 at McKenzie McKenzie, and then the abbreviation for construction const.com.
Yes, sir. Beautiful. We've really covered a lot of ground. We talked a little bit about your background, growing up around the industry, transitioning into, the investing world, while also keeping the construction aspect, lessons learned. Really, Oliver, I don't say this to every guest, but, I really think we could go on for hours, continuing to talk, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, Aaron, it's awesome speaking with you. I love what you're doing, man. You're out there. You're putting yourself out there. You're getting better, man. And that's what this game is all about. It's like, keep performing, man. Just keep putting on the performance and keep doing what you're doing, man. Doing good things.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the kind words, Oliver. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.